The spin, the soft bong of the chime alerted me to my presence at the door. We had a decent crowd that Friday night. I gestured to the door after catching my bartender's attention. On the weekends, it usually took the two of us to keep up, but this would not take long. It was most likely a late arrival from an invited guest. After making sure they were listed, I would let them into the foyer and ask the member to let them in. No one could enter without a member's escort. I would obtain confirmation before allowing them entry if they weren't on the list. Two men who were slightly older than me, roughly 30, were standing by the door. They would not be allowed in even if they were invited because of their jeans and t-shirts. Only slacks and collared shirts were permitted, jeans were not. But you never knew. One of the wealthiest members of our group owned 2 construction companies, one of which was focused on water pipe laying. He would arrive completely mudded, make his way to the locker room, take a shower, change into his stored clothes, and then head to the bar. "Good evening, gentlemen. Could I be of assistance to you?" With grace, I inquired. "We must speak with Jerry Stone. Lead him to the exit." Though his attitude annoyed me, he had asked for me. Perhaps they were searching for employment, while we were making some adjustments to the golf course. I extended my hand. "That would be me. I'm Jerry Stone, and you." That was all I managed to get out before the taller one gave me a right cross that took me completely by surprise. The shorter, heavier man shot me, taking me down before I could react. Have you ever noticed how, when under pressure, your thoughts tend to wander? I was reflecting on how far I'd come from the country club I worked at now, with its civility and refinement, to the biker bars I started out at, where I saw everyone as a threat. When I got lucky, they had me down, going at it pretty good. Our town's assistant district attorney, a former police officer, and the chief of police were just getting inside. With a yell from the chief, they shoved them off of me. I was furious and prepared to mess things up, but the chief had already hidden them both under the little revolver he had to carry around with him at all times as part of his job duties. His service weapon was a Glock, but he kept the revolver in his pocket because he didn't think it was a good idea to flaunt his weaponry. They're incredibly powerful for their size. I fired one. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I was on the verge of shouting. "Who are you?" "You know who we are. We're the husband of the 2 wives you've been sleeping." Now I was really aggravated. "Listen, idiot. I don't date married women, and I've never seen you or your wives before. It causes foolish things like this to occur." The Ada had a smile. "Jerry, thank you for saving our sensitive ears, but these guys are garbage. Do you want to file charges of assault?" I could think of a few credible witnesses. I examined them. With their heads swimming with possibilities, they both appeared to be about to burst out laughing. The chief smiled. "Yes, a more severe attack. Criminal intruding. They specifically came here to harm you, so that would stick. If we gave it some thought, we could definitely come up with a few more." The shorter one appeared extremely afraid. The taller one continued to look angry. "If this guy hadn't messed with our wives, we wouldn't be here. He is to blame. You're creating a strong temptation to file charges. Why do you think I'm taking advantage of your wives? I'll allow you to share your story once, but it won't be in front of the members here." I looked up at the Ada and the chief. "Will you be coming to the office with our guests?" "Really, I would like to resolve this." I looked over at the two. "Would it be all right if you could spare us a few minutes of your time? Before you decide to wait for me in the shadows, I'd like to settle this now." My voice tone made it clear to them that this was not a request. We entered my office after the chief insisted they show him their ID. "Speak. Why do you believe I'm playing pranks on your spouses?" "Because the stupid women told us," the tall one growled. In those precise words. "Is Jerry sharing a bed with me?" The shorter one raised his voice. "Yes, pretty much. Even disclosed to us your location." "Are you serious? Is there any way you could invite them to confirm that?" "It's so straight. The foolish women are waiting for us in the car." The Ada came outside and asked them to come in after they had finished describing the vehicle. They entered trembling. One had a fairly noticeable bruise on her cheek, while the other had bruises on her arms that appeared to be from someone holding on to her too tightly. They were just mediocre, not lovely or ugly. They could have been much more attractive if they hadn't been so scared and bruised. One confusedly peered around. "Ladies, do I know you?" I made a gentle inquiry in an attempt to calm them. "Mister, I've never seen you before. Jerry is where?" She gestured to the lawyer and said, "This man said he was in here." "How about you?" I inquired with the other. "Do I look familiar to you?" "Not at all. What in the world is happening here?" I gave her my license after taking out my wallet. "Jerry Stone, are you two in this place?" "Sorry ladies, I'm the only one here with this name." The men's expressions became even more irate. The tall one, who was clearly the group's brains, yelled at his wife. "Woman, you better not be lying to me." It seems like he was trying to fool himself into going to jail. His wife sobbed, "I swear, I don't know this guy." The chief was done listening. "Guys, please apologize to this man. Tell him you won't see him again, and he might not file any charges. I'll probably give Sheriff Costner a call and tell him about your little adventure now that I have your ID." Taking out his phone, he snapped a few images of the bruises. "He'll definitely stop by tomorrow to see how these ladies are doing. He will not be pleased if he discovers any more bruises. His father abused his mother, so he doesn't put up with this kind of behavior. Either make amends or separate for the night." Recognize. Embarrassed, they nodded. I released them because the trouble of going to court wasn't worth it. I let them go after telling them I wouldn't be as understanding if I saw them again. As we led them to the door, I couldn't help but wonder how the same man could entice two different women. Either they were really stupid, or he had a line of crap a mile long. I assumed a combination of the two. A man entered the foyer as we were approaching the bar. One of the women stopped, but he hardly noticed us. Jerry. He paled as he turned to look. The two girls were calling out his name. Whirling, he bolted back out the door. The chief, along with the men and women, dashed out after him. Ada smiled as she turned to face me. Mystery solved, huh? I simply sighed, turned to face the bar again, and picked up the phone. Becoming a bartender wasn't my original goal, it just sort of happened. My parents raised 6 children. While Dad worked as many hours as he could in the paper factory, Mom raised us at home. Not much was left over for extras, and even less for college. My uncle had a divey bar and grill, but he served good food at affordable prices, poured honest drinks, and kept the kitchen tidy. I got my first job bussing tables and doing dishes thanks to him. After that, I worked as a short-order cook and, when I was old enough, as a bartender. I learned a variety of lessons along the way, similar to recognizing problems. Rarely are the loud ones the ones who get things started. You had to keep an eye on the silent ones. They might become upset about something and withdraw into themselves, drinking and thinking, as my uncle used to say. After then, they would become engulfed in the magic drink and blow up. I discovered that in my county, you handled problems on your own rather than calling the police if someone started causing trouble. If you contact them too frequently, they will block you for bothering them. Furthermore, there is no such thing as a fair fight when you work. It is best to lessen the effect on the throng before encouraging them to participate. As a result, you hurt them by jumping them quickly and hard. Reward them with a bar once or twice, and they will learn to behave. I learned how to fight, rough and tumble at first, after receiving a few bumps and bruises, but I eventually got tired of getting hit and took some lessons. All I wanted was to be able to defend myself, not a belt. My uncle shot and killed the man who had stabbed him when I was 20 years old. Although he avoided going to jail, he was forced to close the church after the ladies revolted. I took part-time classes while working at better jobs over the years, even attended a bartending course and attempted to maintain composure long enough to receive a certificate. My final year was almost over, and I would soon receive my degree in hospitality management. During my 3 years here, I had risen from bartender to assistant manager and finally manager. I was also the restaurant's manager. I often put in 10 and 12-hour workdays, but I never voiced any complaints. In a few years, I hoped to become general club manager at a prestigious club like Briarwood Country Club, which would have paid close to a 6-figure salary. I didn't have a big family life, so I could work these hours. I had never tied the knot. Bartenders have one of the highest divorce rates of any profession in the nation. I had a serious crush on one girl, and she started coming in during my work breaks so we could hang out. She was attractive, young, and bored. The wolves surrounded her, talking her up and giving her alcohol, until one night she vanished. When I went outside, she was sitting in the backseat of a car. I got even with him, broke up with her, and moved to a better place to work. Even though I genuinely thought she was sorry, the damage had already been done. My uncle chuckled after feeling a little sorry for me. What were your expectations? It was like bringing your prize hen to a weasel convention to let her hang around. One thing I've learned about this line of work is that everyone wants to screw the bartender. These people can be socialites, bar flies, or straight women. I quickly realized that this was a job suicide. You were out the door if you offended the right wife, girlfriend, husband, or daughter. I discovered how to strike the right balance by remaining discreet while casually flirting with wives and girlfriends. And not a single instance did I even approach the brink of making a direct or implied offer. It was difficult at times because the women were more present than their men, who were away at work supporting their lifestyle, and they had their own cards. The upside was that once they saw that they could rely on me, they frequently asked for my advice on various matters. This was especially helpful if they were looking for my advice on presents. I had an advantage because I knew their husbands too, and men talk about things they don't think their wives would be interested in. A husband who enjoyed fishing was spoiled by his wife, who took him fishing at an opulent mountain resort where he could chase trout during the day while she went shopping, spa treatments, and poolside tanning. And because of my friend in the lingerie business, they enjoyed each other during the evenings. I told my friend who worked as a bartender at the club that I would like it if he looked after them. Satisfied to oblige, he knew he'd repay the favor eventually. For the men, I followed suit. They figured it out pretty quickly, and they would tell me straight what they wanted, so I could give it to the spouse. Most were easy, but a few were out of the ordinary. The wife once asked me if I could trust her on almost anything as long as it's not too unlawful or immoral. A skilled bartender has greater secrecy than a priest. She told me about a fantasy she wanted to fulfill with her spouse after it satisfied her. It appeared that she found great fascination in being confined to a bed, which allowed her spouse to do whatever he pleased with her. Though she was hesitant to tell her husband, she wanted to give it a shot. It took some time to gently guide him to the point, with a little assistance from my lingerie contact regarding the appropriate gear. Just before he was meant to arrive, she dressed her, bound her to the bed in the hotel room she had rented, and left. The keycard was with me. I gave him up after one drink. "Mr. Reynolds, you've had enough to drink. Your spouse wants you to adhere to these guidelines exactly. She wants you to give her this birthday present and to be understanding and candid. Have a good evening, sir." After 3 weeks without seeing them, I was concerned that I had offended a member when she returned radiant, adorned in a sliver choker centered with a large diamond. He had gotten it for her birthday, she told her friends. She later found me by myself. "This is my collar, right? You know that. Naturally, it's all in good humor, but my husband wanted you to have this as a token of appreciation because I can never express how much I appreciate you. $500, encased in a pair of minuscule, drenched underwear." She laughed. "I wrapped it by myself. Will you, my love, see to it that we have the most private table tonight?" After he'd been at the table for 30 minutes and had his wife practically dancing on her seat, I thanked him gravely for the tip. With a smile, he extended his hand to his spouse, who licked his fingers as he expressed gratitude for my assistance. 2 months later, I was made assistant manager. He was a strong supporter. Any competent bartender owns a book. A good one is worth its weight in gold, but it takes years to make one. I could put you in touch with the best plumber or mechanic in town, a discreet physician, or a divorce attorney, and persuade them to provide prompt service if you so want. Bartenders from 3 states and my friend the lingerie dealer were included in it. I also had agreements with multiple escort services and a bookie. Once more, one needed to tread carefully. Yes, who was held accountable if a man developed a gambling problem and it led to problems with his wife or financial difficulties. The same is true for escorts. Long job if the wife finds out. I therefore added fail-safes. The women were very discreet, and the bookie would only allow the guy to have 2 unresolved bets at any given time. Unwanted publicity did not benefit either of their businesses. I didn't gamble, none of these people gave me money, and I could pretty much get laid for free whenever I wanted. But they were there for me if I needed a favor. Whenever possible, I attempted to direct them to other members if they were in a related field. A lot of our members were business owners, and the relationship was one of exchange. The inspiration came from a friend. His wife avoided football like the plague, always making sure she and her friends had something entertaining to do. Every year, we threw lavish parties, rented the largest TV available, and temporarily transformed the ballroom into a bar. To help absorb alcohol, I had big snack platters fixed in the kitchen. Many wives and girlfriends eventually come to take them home, even after that. After introducing myself and my lingerie connection to a few important women, they left for the races. The women were treated to the newest toys and lingerie fashions in a smaller meeting room while the men watched football. She even had assistance from 2 additional friends, one of whom was a makeup artist and the other a hairdresser. 3 women of various ages, sizes, and features were chosen at random, and they underwent a complete makeover before revealing them, complete with age and shape-appropriate lingerie. More sophisticated snacks were provided by the kitchen, and wines were provided by my other friend who happens to be a local vintner's wife. It was enormously successful. After the game, the men genuinely had to wait on the women. We had 3 taxis waiting and kept a careful check on things. At the end of the night, the women insisted that I come in so they could thank me. 4 of them laughed as they waited to be the last ones out. One exclaimed, "We adore Aubrey, she has the cutest things. Take a look." She had on a very attractive French-made uniform when she opened her coat. The next one wore an almost transparent teddy, the next one wore a very nice lavender garter, and the last one wore nothing but a PVC nurse's uniform. They found it adorable that I turned a fiery red at the end of the unexpected event. We had to relocate it to a bigger room since it started to become an annual event. When I could, I attended classes virtually on Wednesday mornings and Thursday evenings. Though I didn't have time to build a relationship, I did make a few friends. I did hook up a few times, widely apart, because, well, it was college. I had a thing for one woman in particular. On Wednesday and Thursday, we attended accounting and business classes together. We occasionally got together to study in the library. She was 31 years old, a little older than me. She was obviously wealthy from her jewelry, clothes, and car, but she was kind to everyone and occasionally accompanied us for pizza and beer. She fulfilled her portion without ever flaunting her wealth. Her smile could melt any iceberg. It was flirtatious and devilish at the same time as it was sweet and caring. Despite her obvious hotness, she never tried to force it. Unless they pushed it, she gently shot down the college boys, giving them a taste of what she was like. I believed she would be an excellent bartender. She was slumped over on a bench when I spotted her one evening as the library was closing. She looked up at me as I approached, tears still streaming down her cheeks. Tears, not of physical pain, but of pure emotion. "Mind if I sit?" She nodded as she reached into her purse for a tissue. My uncle had left me with a handkerchief that I had always carried. Even though he was wearing jeans and a frayed t-shirt, he always had a clean, monogrammed handkerchief on hand. I handed mine to her. she asked, wiping at her cheeks. Who carries these anymore? Only old school gentlemen, in case they find a distressed maiden in need. She grinned at it. I told her to hold on to it even though she tried to give it back. Twisting it in her hands, she said, "Want to discuss it? In addition to offering handkerchiefs, I have very big ears and a fairly soft shoulder. I swear, no personal agenda." She actually gave a little giggle before her frown set in. "I believe that you are the only man I have ever seen who I genuinely believe in what you say. Of course, I'd like to talk, it could be helpful. Will you buy a dejected girl a cup of coffee, but not here?" I quickly realized the small mom and pop shop she was referring to, which was located close to campus. It was inexpensive, close, and clean, which is why college students loved it. The proprietors were well liked and well known for not tolerating intoxicated people or loudmouths. The booths were widely apart, and it was quiet. They would let you sit and study if it was late and they didn't need the table. We strolled over and I got an apple and she got a cherry on her pie, along with a coffee. She sipped a few times, finished half her pie, then reclined and sighed. "You know I'm married, right?" I gave a nod. It would take a blind man to overlook the stone on her finger. 7 years. I mean, I really did love him. I believed I had found my happily ever after, forever man. Looks like not. How long has he been cheating on you? She appeared taken aback by my direct communication. How were you aware of this? And why do you believe he was the culprit? I gave a shrug. You're undoubtedly one of the good guys. In my line of work, it's easy to tell who the good guys are from the bad. It doesn't seem like money is the problem because you appear to have it. It must be cheating because you don't appear psychologically abused and you don't have any bruises. How come I don't think it's you? You wouldn't be sobbing while sitting on a bench in the dark if that were the case. You would be having a wild time outdoors. It must therefore be him. Her eyes had grown bigger. Are you a psychologist or detective? It's my time to chuckle. No, professional bartender. The depressing story came out. She was a full-time college student when he gave a guest lecture in a business class. He asked her out after catching her eye. He was attractive, charming, and attentive, nearly a decade older than me. 9 months after she fell deeply in love, they were married. He listened carefully, showered her with small gifts, and she was overjoyed. After about 4 years, he began to act differently, ignoring her and growing aloof. When she called him out on it, he apologized and said he would do better, which he did for roughly half a year. He persuaded her to wait since the timing wasn't right when she began to express a desire to start a family. The previous year had been terrible. He had left on Thursday and didn't return until late Saturday on business trips for a new company they had launched every other weekend. Even though he was on the road, he was still distant from her. At last, she took some of his money and asked him to look into it. Without a doubt, he was having affairs. She received validation for her suspicions. He doesn't appear to have a committed partner. I'm aware of 4 of them, but who knows how many there are. Before I made the decision to check on him, he had been traveling for roughly 6 months. I was incredibly afraid. I found a doctor a few towns over and had a thorough examination. Thank God, I returned clean, but it was unsettling. Since I found out, we haven't had any relationships. I can't even say that we've made love. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to faze him too much. My curiosity overcame me. What are your intentions? Will you be approaching him? Attempt to make it function. With a firm shake of her head. Not at all. He may not realize it yet, but he's toast. Still, it will happen rather soon. That's among the reasons I returned to my studies. It's easier to avoid him when I tell him that the classes I needed were primarily taught in the evenings, as he believes I'm taking a full course load. My accounting degree is just a few hours away, and I plan to use it to ensure he doesn't try to take advantage of me during the settlement. He used to joke that money was the only thing he could ever love more than me. He hasn't told me about a few business buildings we own or a few duplex apartments I've already located. My team is digging well. When the showdown comes, I'll have all the information. She let out a sigh. Don't think that I'm looking for gold. One of the main reasons there was no prenuptial agreement was because I brought money into the marriage, which has greatly benefited him. I'll hit him where it hurts if he values women and money more than I do. Sort of. I could see her logic. Why make it take so long? It's clear that you won't keep him. Beat a dead horse. Why not? You're young enough to find someone with whom to start the family you desire, attractive, and obviously wealthy. If you had a Mercedes instead of a minivan, I'm sure you would be an amazing mother. Move on. Discover contentment. That night, she smiled for the first time. So I'm gorgeous, then. Excellent material for a mother. I may consider your offer to help me find a better partner. Are you single, by the way? She laughed aloud as I flushed. You're much above my level. A male Cinderella would be me. That would give rise to dreams. You know what I mean, a wealthy, attractive wife who needs to be smoking hot in other areas. Baby, you're the unrealized dream. She continued to giggle, but then she punched my arm and became serious. Don't undervalue yourself. I've seen how the young coeds regard you. I had a few hookups with Vivian, and she gave you a pretty good report. But I'll do one for love the next time. And, of course, lust. For me, it was becoming a bit too profound. I checked the time on my watch. I had a long day tomorrow, so it was time for us to head home. Glad you chose to put your trust in me. I promise not to reveal Really, none of my business. It's time to find happiness for yourself, if I may presume to give you advice. I drew back her chair. Are you a time traveler, rescuing women in need, holding doors and chairs, and carrying handkerchiefs? There are no men like you in this century. Call me traditional. Good manners never go out of style, and I respect everyone, that is, until I discover they are not. Marie, good night. She surprised me by giving me a full lip kiss as I walked her to her car. I was taken aback. She smiled and pulled back. Just to be sure you're not a fraud. Jerry, good night. After seeing her Cadillac Atz's tail lights fade into the distance, I got into my truck and drove home to my empty bed. Following that evening, Marie and I would frequently meet with friends for coffee on Thursdays. In a group, she was gregarious and animated, but by herself, she was usually thoughtful and depressed. By coincidence, I discovered that the following Thursday was her birthday, and we set up a small surprise celebration. When she arrived, she was taken by surprise because she had assumed we were heading for coffee. We took her to a small jazz bar that one of our friends had found, where the 7 of us celebrated. We had fun, but not too much or too out of control. She danced with every man in the bar, I believe. It ended far too soon. During one of the slow dances, her body seamlessly blended with mine, an image that will never fade. I guided her to her vehicle. She took hold of my hand and kissed me quickly on the cheek as I opened the door. This is where. I nearly forgot. Marie, happy birthday. 12 old-fashioned ladies' handkerchiefs, delicate little squares with stitching around the edges, were included. Her initials were monogrammed on them by me, in case I'm not around when you need one. She threw herself into my arms and started crying. Till she calmed down, I gave her a hug and patted her back gently. I apologize, it's one of the best gifts I've ever received, she said in between hiccups. She gave a weak attempt at a smile as she grimaced. Do you know what my hubby bought me? A necklace of diamonds and sapphires. Pricey, for sure, but his assistant signed the card. I kissed him firmly and said, I've always loved emeralds. How did he know? He grinned broadly, informed me that he was far more attentive than I had anticipated, and then informed me that he would be out of town this weekend. Marie, dump him. Take action right now. Give up torturing yourself now. I'm getting close. That should end in another 3 weeks to a month. Please give me a call if I need moral support. Absolutely. She wouldn't call, I knew that. I was in error. The following Tuesday, she gave a call. Can I ask a favor? Sure. I want to spend next Wednesday afternoon at the Home and Garden Show. I take it you're off that day. I pondered the direction of this. You know it is. Her eagerness was evident in her voice. Will you accompany me? You know you're a truck driver. Should I choose to acquire something, you could transport it for me. Would you please? I pondered for a moment. Marie, I'm not sure. This sounds a lot like a date to me. You are aware of my rule. I shared with her a portion of my past and a great deal of what I had witnessed during my years working behind a bar. She knew how I felt about dating women who are married. It is not a date today. It's a case of friends supporting friends. Would you please? I agreed to escort her even though I shouldn't have. In the parking lot, we crossed paths. Particularly in the landscaping section, we had a blast. I discovered that she cherished alfresco dining areas and cooking. A few planned outdoor kitchens were shown to us. One in particular I thought was excellent. Sensing a sale, the representative applied full court pressure. He went after Marie because he was astute enough to realize that women are the ones who make the majority of household purchases. Don't you just picture yourself hosting guests, with your spouse tending the grill while you socialize. If he can handle the majority of the work, you'll get a nice discount. He seems pretty handy. Grinning, she stroked my arm. He's extremely skilled, but stay away from tools if you don't mind. I would prefer to save his energy for other pursuits. I blushed, and so did the rep. She promised we'd give it some thought and gathered all the brochures and information. We were there for so long that when we left, it was nighttime. All the way to the parking lot, she was content. Wanna grab some dinner? I shocked her by saying no. While I would really like to, I won't. Marie, consider your reputation. At school, you can justify it by referring to your friends and study partners. You can justify your request for me to move things in my truck for you today. But a meal, not a wise move. She let out a groan. He has to ruin it by thinking of me and being noble, the first man I've been attracted to in a long time. If you weren't quite so honorable, I think I would like you a little more. No, you wouldn't. If I wasn't, all I would be is another jerk attempting to take advantage of and seduce a troubled married woman. Both of us would have a lower opinion of me. I could never do that. I looked around, nobody was nearby, and it was getting dark, so I grabbed her and gave her a forceful kiss. She answered passionately. After realizing what we were doing for 30 seconds, I withdrew. Our breath was coming in short spurts. When her breathing calmed down, she asked, "What was that for?" That was just me telling you, sweet Marie, that no matter what I say, I've been drawn to you ever since our first date. Additionally, it was to confirm what I had long suspected. You really are a gorgeous woman. Good night. She was probably crying as I waited for her to leave in my truck. I believed I saw glimmers of my gifts white. I turned off and watched her tail lights go out before heading home and having a restless night. My small gesture in the parking lot seemed to have left an impression on Marie. In a class I didn't take with Marie, I had been chatting up a woman informally when she made an approach to ask me out. I agreed because it had been a while. We enjoyed a great morning and an enjoyable evening together. At least for me, it was purely recreational. She expressed her desire for a repeat, so I believe she enjoyed it. We arranged some loose plans for the following weekend. One of the guys in both classes told Marie. Although I wasn't present, she pursued the woman and engaged in a brief conversation. When I spoke with Gail, the girl I had gone out with, the following day, she gave me a hard time. "You're a foolish person. If you were in a committed relationship, why were you dating me? I got really chewed out by your girlfriend." This girlfriend got a name. You can be certain it was Marie. You most definitely won't be getting it from me, and I wouldn't hold out much hope for receiving any from her for some time. I need you to stop hanging out with your crazy girlfriend. Before I left, I apologized to her. She shot me a final look. If I were you, I wouldn't try this again. She's distributed the word. It could go very wrong if we date. I now understood why she had hurried away the previous evening. I caught her the following Thursday before class. Pizza place, directly following class. You have some splaining to do, just like Luso Ball. Knowing what she enjoyed, I arrived early and placed my order. Head down, she slid into the booth. "Want to tell me about your conversation with Gail?" At last, she raised her gaze. "She's far too young and not the right fit for you. You ought to avoid dating anyone who resembles her." "Marie, even if everything you say is accurate, shouldn't I have the freedom to choose? What benefit does your behavior have for you?" Her gaze flickered. "You are the world's most foolish man, if I must say so. You should find a woman who is roughly your own age, has real-world experience, and has the ability to both make you feel good about yourself and ruin you in private. You refer to an individual who resembles you." Her eyes rolled as if she were speaking to a fool. "Not someone similar to me, no, me." Though now that it was in the open, I wasn't sure exactly how to handle my suspicions. "Marie, I come to a stop. I'll end up getting annoyed by it. Pay attention to me. I feel drawn to you. I can tell you want me after that kiss the other night and your statement. Take it easy on this one. I swear to you, I'll come after you as soon as I get out of this predicament." That's the reason I cut Gail off. "You must keep your attention on me. I don't need you to be sidetracked." "Recognize." "Yes, but," she firmly stated, no buts, and left the room. I went home with the pizza box to go and overanalyzed it. 3 weeks later, she told me, "Almost done. My team of forensic accountants, who are said to be the best in the business, is reviewing our financial records. When I have access to most of the passwords, it's simple. They were able to gain access despite a few things being blocked. Not as much as he will be, but still, I was taken aback. All I have to do is choose how harshly I want to punish him." "You want my opinion?" She seemed eager to hear what he had to say, as she nodded. "As low-key as possible, do it quietly. I'm not sure what kind of business you run, but consider how this might affect it. Recall that attempting to burn him could result in the heat blowing back and costing you in the long run." She played with my hair. "You're way too honorable, I will say it again. The majority of people would tell me to go nuclear. Again, if he pushes back or tries to act ugly, I might have to take things further. But once more, I'll bow to your reasoning. That being said, as an almost free woman whose soon-to-be ex is out of town, can I interest you in a drink somewhere?" "Marie," she protruded her tongue. "When I'm officially single, what will you hide behind? I'm going to chase after you nonstop." "Recognize." I was a little taken aback. Unquestionably, there was a spark between us, but I told her that I wasn't her match. "We'll see," she remarked. "And I'll let you pay each time we go out if money is a concern for you." "Hon, I'm not really that fussy." She realized how uncomfortable I was becoming and gave in. I led her outside to her car, which was strangely parked in the back. With her tongue wedged so far down my throat that she could have told you what I had for lunch, she looked around, saw no one, and practically tackled me. She was massaging me all over, and she smiled when we eventually parted. "You might have morals, but you're human, and part of you likes the idea of us together." A week later, she entered the bar on her husband's arm, and I got the shock of my life. Many things made sense at once. She gave me a strange look, and I still remember telling her where I worked. He wasn't very popular with most of the people in the country club. He was an ingratiating idiot, quick to take advantage of any opportunity, and self-serving. Sure, he was attractive and well-groomed, and his graying hair gave him a polished executive appearance, but after a few drinks, he pretended to be a college student. He was put up with and loved by a small group of people, which included 2 influential board members. He was always polite but flirtatious around women. Given that he had only been a member for a little over a year, I assumed he didn't want to cause any stir. Maintaining appearances, etc. Marie looked amazing in her simple sundresses and jeans, which is all I had ever seen her wearing. She had intricately twisted her black hair, her eyes were a striking shade of brown, and her lips were perfectly shaped and begged to be kissed thanks to her subtle makeup. The typical little black dress, complete with 4-inch heels, revealed a good amount of leg and a small amount of cleavage. I had never seen her there before, so it was a first. I didn't believe he was wed. He had never shown me his wedding ring. He had one on tonight, I noticed. He gave her a tour around. He appeared to be proud, but not in the sense of this is the love of my life, more like look what I got. By the time he arrived at the bar, I had prepared his drink. She deliberately positioned herself on the corner stool next to my service entrance. And what would you like, ma'am? I took pride in my businesslike manner. He had his back to her, which is why she smiled at me. Yes, I don't drink too much. Could you please give me what you would drink if you weren't on duty? Coming right up. I gave her a double shot of pure rye with a side of water. She nodded and took a sip. Not too heavy, but smooth. I thought you would come up with some fruity mixture that had a ridiculous name. This is a huge improvement. She looked up at her spouse. Winslow, he's just fantastic. Do you not concur? He was engrossed in a conversation with a friend. His hand was waved off dismissively. Jerry is more than capable, yes. Look, honey, you understand that I have to go outside for business. Jerry, won't you take good care of you, Jerry? As if she was my own, sir, I said, trying not to show emotion. Marie almost choked on her drink. Excellent, excellent. Come back soon, my dear. As soon as he left, I turned to face her. She said, don't look at me like that, as soon as no one was in the vicinity. Until we arrived here, I had no idea where we were going. I've never been here with him before. This is the first time. She laughed. Besides, seeing you in your natural environment might be beneficial. Obtain some knowledge that will aid me in your seduction. Happily, I had to leave at that point. Mrs. Everleigh was beside her and they were chatting like long-lost sisters when I returned. There you are. Please, could you refill me? Would you like another, Evelyn? I think I would, she remarked. Jerry, please, could you have Aubrey call me? In 2 weeks is Tom's birthday, and I want to make it extra special. Consider it done. I'll have her call tomorrow afternoon. I grinned. Mrs. Everleigh was in her mid-60s, but she appeared remarkably youthful for her age, having completed some work. At the lingerie party, she was the one wearing the nurse's uniform. The following week, Tom had shook my hand and thanked me. She's hotter than she's been in years, and said she owed it to you and some woman named Aubrey. She looked over at Marie. Marie, please stop by more frequently. I will acquaint you with the women who genuinely oversee the establishment. It wouldn't do to break the husband's illusions, though, so don't tell them. And tell Jerry here if you need anything at all. Not kidding. He can obtain or arrange for almost anything for you. Almost everything, that is. The Chippendale dancer is still not delivered by him. Well, Mrs. Everleigh, I haven't found the one yet. The best is something you deserve. She patted my hand and giggled. Marie was beaming. That's possible, Evelyn. Come on, more often, that is. And I might accept Jerry's offer. I have a few ideas for things I'd like him to take care of. I had to leave. At last her husband, whom I had come to mentally refer to as Winnie the Pooh, appeared, had another drink, and they drove off. She shook my hand and expressed her gratitude for my services, both now and in the future. She probably gave her hips a little extra sway as she left the room, realizing I was observing. Mrs. Everleigh was observing as well. She seems like a sweetheart. Jerry, don't you think so? I concur, Mrs. Everleigh, I'm sure she's very sweet. Don't care much for her husband, though. Though I remained silent, I wholeheartedly agreed. Then, after 2 weeks, boom. Jerry, the pursuit is underway after 3 weeks. She was really enjoying herself. It was enjoyable to watch her smile. Like the air after a heavy downpour. Everything seemed more refined, orderly, focused, and attractive as a result. We made love after I made a moral error. It was foolish, but then, most accidents are. I went outside to have a conversation with a nearby farmer. Having established the slow food movement, I was constantly collaborating with the chef to add new items to the menu. This particular farmer specialized in unusual and heirloom produce, and before he met us, he was having problems finding a market for some of the stranger stuff. On this specific day, he was bringing African horned melons, which are sometimes called jelly melons or, less elegantly, snot melons. These were small, cylinder-shaped fruits with spikes covering them, mottling orange and yellow, quite pointed spikes. The nickname came from the flesh's light green color and somewhat slimy appearance. After tasting them, I thought they were essentially flavorless. Recently, they were recognized as a new superfood, and our chef, Aaron, created a salad featuring them as the main ingredient. The women adored it. I had gone outdoors to inspect some bananas that he had successfully grown. They were small, pink, and incredibly flavorful. For amusement, he had cultivated 12 trees and was sharing the produce with his acquaintances and clients. Mostly because I wanted to get outside in the sun and because I enjoyed talking to him, I was assisting him with his delivery. The cart path was directly in front of us. Drunk, he ran all over me and reached for another beer. I should probably be relieved that it was a golf cart and not a vehicle. I had 4 stitches in my arm, a brace on my knee, and a terrible headache from my trip to the emergency room. Additionally, I lost my job for 2 weeks without getting paid. The following day, I hobbled into the office and worked for 2 hours, consulting my book for temporary assistance, reviewing the schedule with the assistant bar manager and chef, and preparing for my vacation. At that point, the chairman and club manager entered my office. "Jerry, how do you feel?" His voice carried a real air of concern. He was a good man who started from nothing and became a prosperous business owner. He had served as chairman for some time, and the club came after his business and his late wife as his three passions. Women young enough to be his daughters seemed drawn to him, despite his advanced age. Late one afternoon, when we were essentially alone in the bar and he was in a relaxed mood, he said, "It's the money, Jerry. If you add enough zeros to a number, it will make you incredibly wealthy. They're fun, but that's not going away. I haven't found anyone who can match the high standards set by my late wife," I said, sore, turning back to the here and now and smiling. "The doctor says I can come back in 2 weeks, on a limited basis. We would like to inform you that the club will cover all of your costs and your salary. Tell us if you need anything else at all." He hesitated a moment. "What do you want to do about Bob?" It was Bob who knocked me down. I was aware that they were concerned about potential legal repercussions. I didn't harbor any animosity towards him. I understand it was an accident, and in his sobriety, he was a good man. A suspension of 1 month. What if it had been a member, a guest, or even a service personnel? The club would be completely screwed. Upon his return, he refrains from operating a cart for a minimum of 3 months. That's what I would recommend. They both exhaled a sigh of relief. Finished. Regards, Jerry. Don also wishes to express regret to you. He is genuinely sorry about what transpired. Tell him we'll talk when his suspension is over. My comment, what do you think about this one so far? And finishing the part 2 while you are all watching this. Subscribe if you like where this is going. I think OP might be making the correct choice here and we will see it in the ending.